Before we get started on Dharma talk, please join me in invoking the Buddha's name 3 times. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Dear Venerable Teacher, dear Sangha, good afternoon. We, of course, are continuing on the Dhammapada, chapter 2. I'm skipping a couple of verses this time. I think last time we did verse 28, right? I don't remember, sorry. So we're skipping 29 and 30, so today we'll go over verses 31 and 32. And they are pretty short, also important verses, and a couple of my favorites. I know I say that a lot, but the whole thing's just, they're all my favorite. But anyway, so verse 31 and 32 goes as follows. A bhikshu, a monk, who delights in earnestness, who looks with fear on thoughtlessness, advances like fire, burning all his fetters, small or large. A bhikshu, who delights in reflection, who looks with fear on thoughtlessness, cannot fall away from his perfect state. He is close to nirvana. The first verse, 31, that was a verse given to a monk who, after received his object of meditation from the Buddha, went out into the forest and pretty much just spent his days in the forest meditating. And he was close to full enlightenment at the time. But he was on his way to go see the Buddha because he kind of got to a point where he just didn't know what to do next, right? He just thought, I'm doing all I can, I'm doing all I can know to practice, but I'm just not achieving that final step. And so on his way to the Buddha, there was a fire in the forest. And so he went up a mountain to escape the fire, to get away from it. But as he was on top of the mountain looking down on the fire, he saw how the fire was blazing through the forest, just burning everything down in its path. And at that time, he had this sudden enlightenment that what he needs to do is to, just as the fire is burning down all these trees and everything in its path, I too need to burn down all my fetters, all my defilements in order to clear those defilements in order to attain enlightenment. And so when he went to the Buddha and he kind of told him what had happened, the Buddha confirmed that what you've realized about the fire and its burning its path is correct. And so he gave the verse. A bhikshu who delights in earnestness, who looks with fear on thoughtlessness, advances like fire, burning all his fetters, small or large. I'll discuss a little bit about the fetters here, because the fetters are essentially the main obstacles that we go through or have that hold us back from attaining enlightenment. So I'm going to write that down since I brought the board over for a reason. So there are 10 fetters. I'm sure I wrote this down before. Okay, that was a lot. So there are 10 fetters: self, doubt, attachment to rites and rituals, sensual desire, hatred, attachment to the form realms, attachment to the formless realms, conceit, restlessness, and ignorance. So according to the Buddha, the first 5 are the small fetters. And the last 5 are the large fetters. I don't know why it's sideways, so bear with me. So when the Buddha was giving the verse that a bhikshu or a monk or a diligent practitioner, right? Some of these verses are directly toward the monks or the monastics at the time, but essentially they do apply to anyone that's practiced diligently, who's practicing, who's a serious practitioner in a sense. And so the Buddha said that we have to burn away our fetters, just the way that the fire burns or blazes through the forest, right? And the fire, we have to burn our feathers, all small and large. And the thing about Buddhist practice is the attainment of anything, the attainment of our practice, the advancement of our practice it's a gradual process. It's a gradual process. And we sometimes do hear the terms sudden enlightenment, especially in Zen practice, but that's nonsensical for most practitioners. It makes you do so much work in such a little time in order to find that sudden enlightenment. It's just not practical for most people, or at least especially not for lay people. It's impractical. And so the Buddha taught us that the way to enlightenment is a gradual process. You have to know the basics, you have to know what you're doing, you have to know what you're not doing, you have to know what is right, what is wrong, what is correct, all the Four Noble Truths, all the Eightfold Path. That's essentially the process, right? So as we go through the fetters, right, and we burn them out, by burning the fetters, we're attaining stages of enlightenment. So the first 3 stages, 1, 2, and 3, if we're able to eradicate these stages, or these fetters, then we've attained the first stage of enlightenment, of Sotapanna, or stream enter. And burning the last 2, we go into Sakadagamin, the once returner, okay. So after we've burned essentially the first 3 fetters, then we've attained the first stage of enlightenment, called stream enterer, or Sotapanna, which is eradicating the self-view or the idea of a self. We've eradicated the doubt in our practice, and we are eradicating the attachment to rites and rituals. And back in the day, during the Buddhist time, this was a big deal, because Hinduism was the main practice at the time, right? And so the Vedic traditions and the practices and rituals were part of everyday life. You had to make sacrifices of animals, you had to do all these rites and rituals for anything and everything that you did, for getting married, for getting divorced, for dying, for birthing, for celebrating this and that. There was always rites and rituals. And so people were attached to them because they were thinking, if I didn't do this ritual, something bad's going to happen, right? And so it was, at the time, it was difficult for a lot of the Buddha's disciples and the monks and nuns to let go of those rituals because they were so ingrained in them, right? The same way how we're all ingrained in Christianity or Catholicism or whatever we grew up with, right? We have these ideals cemented in our mind. And so when we're researching or reading or studying opposing views or complementary views sometimes, it's hard to let go of what we were taught as we grew up, right? And then sensual desire and hatred gets weakened at the second stage of enlightenment, sakadagamin. And so sensual desire here is essentially the desire of our senses, eyes, form, sound, smell, taste, and touch, right? And of course, lessening hatred or anger or ill will. It's lessened, it's weakened at the second stage. Then it's completely eradicated at the third stage of anagamin, of non-returner. So after we've weakened sensual desire and hatred, third stage is eradicated completely. The last five fetters are eradicated, and we have attained the final stage of enlightenment, full enlightenment, arhatship. And these are the eradication of the attachment to the form realm and the formless realm. So the form realm and formless realm, this means that we let go of the desire to want to be reborn in a better life or in a better realm of existence, right? The form realm is essentially the lower realms of existence. So coming back as human, right? I want to come back as a rich person next lifetime, basically, right? We let go of that idea. We let go of that desire. The formless realm are the higher levels of consciousness, the higher realms of existence. So you can think of it as like the heavenly realms, basically. And then, of course, conceit, restlessness, and ignorance, which is obvious what they are, hopefully. So the Buddha is teaching us that these are the stages. These are we have to work through these obstacles. We have to go through this gradual process of knowing what is out in the world, knowing what is in our mind, knowing what is causing that suffering, and those obstacles are in the way. So these feathers are the ground truth. Like, this is what you have to work on. This is what you have to get rid of, eradicate, let go of, in order to attain enlightenment. And they're in stages because you can't skip. You can't just go from level 0 to level 4 in Arhat right away, right? You have to go through all the stages. You have to go through every level. You can't just eradicate all of them at the same time. It doesn't work like that, right? It's the same thing by going to college. You can't just take one semester and all of a sudden you have 4 years of education after one semester, right? You have to go through many semesters, you go through many years, go through many different classes, advanced classes, lower classes, et cetera, in order to attain that degree, right? So it's the same thing with here. This too, you have to work your way up. You have to apply the knowledge and the practices that you know or are reading or studying and apply them, right? It's one thing to read all the sutras, to read all the discourses and the practices and the books and this and that. Knowing this information doesn't help you. Knowing this information just gives you the knowledge. What is the knowledge doing for you? How's that helping you? How's that helping others? It doesn't. But what you need to do, what you have to do, is use that knowledge and apply it into your life. Yeah, I know everything about meditation. Do you meditate? No. You don't know nothing. Buddhism is a very experiential practice. It's a very experiential religion or way of life, whatever you want to call it, right? We have all these teachings and practices, not just as dogma or as the law, right? It's not telling you, oh yeah, if you pray, if you chant, if you meditate, you're going to have a better life. Or you're going to become enlightened. Or you're going to be reborn in a heavenly realm. Or if you don't do this, then you're going to be reborn in an animal realm or the hell realm. Right? It's not like that. It's not forcing you to do this or that. It's telling you, if you want to have a better life, right? Isn't that essentially the goal for everyone in life, is to be happy? Right? That is our goal. Well, how do you want to be happy? How do you attain that happiness? Well, the Buddha, thankfully, because he was such a great teacher, gave us a roadmap, gave us a blueprint. He provided the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path master the Four Noble Truths. Follow the Eightfold Path, and you will naturally just see the world differently, see things as they are, understand things as they are. And by doing that, by letting go of partiality and letting go of your perceptions and ideas and biases and discriminations and likes and dislikes, by letting those go, then you have a clearer mind to see things as they are, right? Because that's the main goal of Buddhism, or the Buddhist practice, is to see reality as it is. Because right now we don't. Right now we see things according to how we see things in this moment in time. We see things and we judge things by what we know currently or what we don't know. We judge and see and we evaluate according to our perceptions, according to our ideas, according to our past experiences. But we're not seeing them as they are. We're seeing them how we believe we see them. Right? If we were all to go outside right now and look up in the sky and look at the clouds, every single one of us is going to see a different shape or figure in the clouds, right? Someone's going to see a car, someone will see a happy face, someone may see a Buddha, someone may see a tree, someone may see a cat, someone may see a dog. Well, if we're all seeing different things, then who's right? Who's wrong? Right? If there are multiple answers to the one thing, then it's not correct. We're not seeing things as they are. But if you look up in the sky and you say, this is a cloud, then you're seeing it as it is. It's just a cloud. It's not a shape of what you see it. You're not applying perceptions, your ideas, your experiences to it. You're seeing it for just seeing it. You're just experiencing it, but you're not you're experiencing it. I'll stop right there. And then the second verse, the last verse, which is essentially almost the same verse, but the Buddha changed the last part of it. So a bhikshu who delights in reflection, who looks with fear on thoughtlessness, cannot fall away from his perfect state. He is close to nirvana. Cannot fall away from his perfect state is what? Non-regression. Because as soon as you attain any level of enlightenment or any realization, there is no regression. There is no going back realization. You can't undo an attainment that you've attained, right? And so as soon as you've attained any level of enlightenment, you are on the path of non-regression. There's no going back. There's only going forward. And so once you're on that path of non-regression, nirvana, final enlightenment, is near. It's close to you. It's close for you. Now, technically speaking, each level of enlightenment has, according to the discourses and commentaries, once you've attained the first level of enlightenment of Sotapatthana, stream enterer, you are to be reborn no more than 7 more times. Maximum of 7 more lives to be reborn. The second stage of once returner, return once. And then the third stage of non-returner, you no longer return. You're no longer reborn in a heavenly realm. So the arhat is the final. But as soon as you enter any stage, there's no going back. As soon as you enter any stage, you see the fruition of your practice. You see the benefits of the practice. You're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, basically. And so this is why the Buddha emphasizes that our practice needs to be diligent. It needs to be applied. You can't just come and listen to Dharma talks or do the chanting or meditate and then forget about it as soon as you walk out the door. Right? How many times growing up, most of us grew up in churches or synagogues or whatever, the majority of people only go to church on special occasions. Christmas, Easter, whatever other holiday there is, right? And so you're a Christian by that definition that you go to church 1, 2, 3, 4 times a year. Can you really call yourself a Christian? What makes a Christian? Going to church doesn't make you a Christian. Not going to church doesn't make you a Christian. Following the path of the teachings and living according to what Jesus has told, to love and to be generous, to all of those stuff, right? Same thing with Buddhism. How do you practice? You practice through different practices. The four immeasurables, the Brahma-viharas, are the most important. Loving kindness, compassion, equanimity, and appreciative joy. You're compassionate toward others. You're loving toward others. You are joyous from the joys of others. And then you see the world with equanimity, with equality, with balance. Right? And so when you're able to apply those teachings not just to yourself, not to others, but to yourself too, because you have to be compassionate to yourself. You have to be loving toward yourself. You have to be joyous for the small successes in your life. And you have to be able to open your mind up enough to be equanimous, to be open to change, open to quality, open to equanimity in the world. Being Buddhist is easy. Right? But being a practitioner is difficult. You can call yourself a Buddhist all you want. You can call yourself a Christian all you want. You can call yourself a Muslim all you want. The title, the name, does not make you any more or less that object than someone else. Just because I wear robes doesn't mean it does mean I'm a monk, but it doesn't define me, right? Being members of the temple doesn't define you. I'm a member of the temple. Okay, good for you. What are you doing? How are you helping yourself? How are you helping the community? How are you helping the world? Right? These are titles. These are designations that we give ourselves. But at the end of the day, none of that matters. I don't care if you're man, woman. I don't care if you're big or short. I don't care if you're white or black. I don't care what you are. All these titles that people give to us or give themselves is nonsensical. It just doesn't make sense. Who cares? Right? Because at the end of the day, when you die, you can't take those titles with you. You can't take possessions with you. You can't take everything that you've worked for with you. Right? You've come into this world with nothing. You're going to leave this world with nothing. The only thing you can take with you is your good deeds and your bad deeds. That's what's going to drive. That's what's going to move you in this life and future lives. Is by the deeds that you do, by the practices that you do, by your generosity, by your patience, by your compassion, by your love, by your morality. And so when we take and so the Buddha gave us the 5 precepts, for instance, right? The 5 precepts are the precepts that lay practitioners take. Because why? Monks and nuns have hundreds of precepts. The lay people have 5. Why only 5? Because these are the 5 basic rules that will ensure you that you will have a happy life. They're not laws or commandments. These are common sense objectives. Abstain from killing. Obviously, why would you want to kill? You kill, you go to jail. Right? This includes all living beings too. So this includes insects and animals and everything else. Anything that's living. So instead of thinking of it as to not kill, think of it as to protect life. To abstain from lying. Lying doesn't help anybody. Right? Be like, oh, it's just a little white lie. Yeah, well, white lies turn into black hole lies. Right? To abstain from sexual misconduct. What does that mean? It doesn't mean to abstain from sex altogether. It means to practice it correctly. To be truthful and faithful to your partner. to not have multiple partners, to not be with someone who has a partner, or don't be with someone if you have a partner, right? Don't be the H word. And to abstain from stealing. Clearly, that's another action that may land you in jail, right? This stealing is many things too. It's stealing in a sense that you're stealing not just possessions or material possessions, but also human trafficking or money laundering or anything that is taking away from others for your own personal gain. And abstain from intoxicants, drugs, alcohol. Because drugs and alcohol are clearly terrible things in the world if taken in excess. Right? How many, I don't know if they still have it, but I remember like on the highways, sometimes on the signs be like, oh, there's 660 something deaths this year because of drunk driving. Do they still do that? I don't know if they still do that. I haven't driven a highway in a while. But it shows us just how many lives are lost because of a stupid decision that we've made. It's a stupid decision to take intoxicants. That's one thing, right? You can live with that as long as you stay put. Another stupid decision is to go out in the world after you're drunk or high. Is to drive or to just to go out, right? Because now not only are you endangering your own life, but now you're endangering other lives. And we use the example of road rage all the time. If you're just driving along the highway, someone cuts you off, right? What is your normal reaction? Cussing them out. You're flipping them mouth. You're hand gesturing. You're pulling out a gun, maybe. I don't know, right? But you're doing something that is essentially trying to cause fear or regret in the other driver that cut you off. So sometimes, depending on the person, sometimes, doing the hand gesturing and flipping them off or cussing them out is one thing. But sometimes we take it to the next level, and then we then speed up and try to cut them off and do the same thing that they did to us, right? But if we do that, there's so many dangers in that. Because you allowed that hatred, you allowed that self to take over. And so now that you sped up and try to cut them off, what may happen, what often happens, is people get so enraged that now they're trying to push them off the road. So you get pushed off the road, so now you're endangering not only your life, you're endangering other people's lives. You may get hurt, they may get hurt. You may die, they may die. Or multiple people may get hurt or die. Was those loss of lives worth the 2 seconds that you felt good about yourself because you sped up and showed them what you got? It's insanity. Luckily, I don't drive as often anymore. But why do we allow that to happen in the first place? Actual question. Why do we allow this to happen? Ego. Where does egos come from? The self. That's why it's number one on the list. It's the very first thing we have to let go of in order to become anywhere near a state of enlightenment. It's the self-view, the I, or the me or mine. It's the personality, it's the characteristics that we give ourselves, that we allow others to give ourselves. It's all this hype that we build up throughout the lives. And this is ingrained in society. You grew up, this is your name, this is your gender, this is what your nationality is, this is where and why you should go to school, this is what you should work with, this is the place you should live, this is the type of car you should have, this is the type of relationship you should have, this is how many kids you should have, this is how much money in the bank you should have, right? all these things are creating the self. It's creating this idea of how we should be, and how we should see ourselves, and how other people should see us. So the moment we let that go and say that everything that comes into our life, yeah, okay, that's nice. I have a nice house, or I have a nice car, or I have a good job, or I have millions of dollars in the bank account. That's great. But we're not using that to define ourselves. If you're using anything of yourself to define yourself, you're still stuck in ego. Forgive me, Michelle, I'll use an example. As a Can I share your story? Okay. As a recovering alcoholic and drug user, right? That's 4 years sober. And if she allows that whole piece of her to define her identity, for instance, this is who I am. I am the sober person. Look at me as a sober person. I know how to get sober. I know how to stay sober. I know how to let go. I know how to do that. If her whole personality in life is all about that one thing that she knows, then she's stuck in ego. She's stuck with self. Luckily she's not, because I know her well. But if that's the case for anybody, for anyone, then you're stuck in ego. You're stuck in this self-view. And anytime someone tries to oppose that, or to change that, or to add to that, and you may or may not agree with it, then you're creating self-conflict. You're creating conflict with yourself and with the world. I haven't even gotten to the second verse. My point is, though, this just leads to the second verse. And so in the second verse, the Buddha says, if you follow heedfulness and fear heedlessness, right? Heedfulness here, which is the whole topic of this chapter, means the mindfulness and the practice that we put into the mindfulness and the awareness that we put into our practice to be heedful, to be diligent. If we fear heedlessness, which is the fetters, if we fear them, and we apply our practice to be like fire burning through the forest, then we can burn off these fetters. And when you burn off these fetters, then you're closer to nirvana. And I won't even go through the story for this, because these stories are short and the commentary doesn't really apply to the story itself. It applies to the verse, so I'm not going to tell the story. But the point is that the Buddha in the first verse is telling us to fear the fetters, to work on eradicating, burning off the fetters. And as soon as you start burning them, like fire through the forest, they start to fall away, and you're closer to nirvana, closer to enlightenment. Oh, wow. Okay. Spoke longer than I thought. So I'm going to stop there. That is the last verse for this chapter. Appamada vaga. Appamada means heedfulness or diligence. So be appamada. Be diligent. Be heedful in your practice. Okay. What questions do you have? Concerns? Emotional outbursts? You can sense your energy from here, and your questions lingering off the tip of your tongue. Yes, sir.
That's one of the more interesting aspects of Buddhism for me is that this concept that we're not born with
Exactly. Our enlightenment is like buried treasure. It's there. We have the map to where it's buried. We know how to get there. But we have to work and dig through all that defilements, all the fetters, all the dozens of feet of dirt and soil and stuff to get to it, right? So we have to put in the work. It's not as simple as, yeah, I'm going to come and meditate and all my problems will be gone the next day. It doesn't work like that. If it did, none of us would be here, right? We'd be like, oh, okay, I'm enlightened. I don't have to come back anymore. But we're not. So we continue to come to learn, to practice, so that we can slowly dig our way or through our tunnel of fetters to reach that treasure. That's why the Dharma is called the jewel, the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. These are jewels. These are the gems of enlightenment. But they are buried. And it's our job to unbury them. Is unburied even a word?
See lots of examples all the time. I do it myself. That there is something something other than what I am that's better than what I think I am, and all that stuff. But it occurred to me that the ego is also a source of the negative thoughts that we have about ourselves too. So it's self. It's both sides. It's both the aggrandizement and the things we do to punish ourselves. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was actually, when I was reading through my notes last night, I was reading through, I think I was reading through the wrong verses. At the end of it, when I realized this wasn't the correct verse, I'm like, oh, I'm such an idiot. I should have paid more attention. Right? So we're always condemning ourselves too. Right? We're not even allowing compassion to... We're not allowing to be compassionate toward ourselves or to love ourselves. So ego works both ways. Ego is drawing the things you want, but it's also pushing or bringing into surface the negative aspects you think about yourself too. I want this, I want that, but I don't want this, I don't want that. That's still ego, right? That's a huge topic. Self. I think of everything on that list, the non-self topic is the biggest and most complicated, which is why enlightenment is not easy. Because you have to get over the biggest mountain first. So the very top of the mountain. So you have to climb up. But once you're there, you're there. It's all smooth sailing from there, sort of. Okay. Yes, sir. Yes and no. So it wouldn't necessarily burn off the fetters, but it does weaken them. Because you see that self has no place in the rest of them. Self has no place in my doubt of the practice. Self has no place in my desires. Self has no place in everything else. But they're still there. Because even though you may have relinquished the self-view, you still may have a desire to be born in a heavenly realm. Or you still may have a desire just to have a better life, for instance, right? That doesn't mean that you're selfish in wanting that. You're just hoping for something better, right? But it is the weakening of all the other fetters. And it's only fully eradicated at the last one. So it doesn't necessarily mean that when we're relinquishing that fetter, or we burn off that fetter, you still have the ashes. The ashes are still there. And even though they're not fully alive, there's still specks left, right? And so until you're able to burn all of it, and let the ashes float away into non-space, then everything is free. Okay, I'm gonna stop because like I said, that's a huge topic. We'll talk about that in next class, next session. But I will go over the 10 feathers next time because that is also a big topic. I just want to give you a sneak peek. But yes, excellent question. I know I haven't fully answered it, but I will. Just not today. That's too much time. Okay. So we will go ahead and transfer the merit, and then we'll go to chanting. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. For any positive karmic action we've accumulated here today, we wish to transfer the merit to all sentient beings and wish them full enlightenment.
General service. Inviting the bell. Body,
speech and mind in perfect oneness, I send my heart along with the sound of the bell. May the hearers awake from forgetfulness and transcend all anxiety and sorrow. Listen, this wonderful sound brings me back to my true home.
Incense offering. In
gratitude we offer this incense to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas throughout space, and may it be fragrant as earth herself, reflecting our careful efforts, our wholehearted, mindful, and the fruit of understanding slowly ripening. May we and all beings become Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May we awaken from forgetfulness and realize our true home.
Opening verse. The incense
Since in the censer now is burning all the Dharma realm in every place, auspicious clouds appearing, our sincere intention thus fulfilling, as all Buddhas now show their perfect body. Homage to the incense cloud canopy, Bodhisattva and great Bodhisattvas.
Mercies for bowing, we bow together. Homage
to the eternally abiding Buddhas, the supreme Dharma, and sagely sung throughout the Dharma realm and the realm of empty space and 3 periods of time.
homage
to the fundamental teacher Shakyamuni Buddha Maitreya, honored future Buddha Manjushri, great wisdom Bodhisattva, universal great conduct Bodhisattva, all Dharma guarding Deva Bodhisattvas, and the glorious mountain assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas.
homage
To Amitabha Buddha in the land of ultimate bliss, Avalokiteshvara, great compassion Bodhisattva, great strength Bodhisattva, earth stored great vow Bodhisattva, and the assembly of great pure sea like Bodhisattvas.
Please sit down. The great compassion mantra. Namo.
Great compassionate Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Namo. Great compassionate Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Namo. Great compassion Buddhas and Bodhisattvas.
Namo
Ratnatrayaya, Namo Aryavarokiteshvaraya, Bodhisattvaya, Mahasattvaya, Mahakarunikaya, Sarvarava Tasya Namaskritva Himamadya Valokiteshvararam Dava Namo Narakendi Srimahava Sarvarhatu Shobham Ajiyam Sarva Sattva Namo Vastava Namo Bhagavitato Tadyata Om Avaloke Lokate Karate Hiri Mahabodhisattva Sarva Sarva Mala Mala Mahi Mahiridayam Koro Koro Karma Doro Doro Vijate Mahavijate Dara Dara Dirini Shvaraya Chala Chala Mama Vimala Bhuktilehi Shina Shina Harsham Prashari Visha Vishvam Prashaya Holo Holo Mara Holo Holo Re Sara Sara Siri Siri Soro Soro Bodhiya Bodhiya Bodhaya Bodhaya Maitreya Narakindi Shanina Bhayamana Swaha Siddhaya Swaha Mahasiddhaya Swaha Siddhayogi Shvaraya Swaha Narakindi Swaha Maranara Swaha Sira Simha Mukaya Swaha Sarva Mahasiddhaya Swaha Chakra Siddhaya Swaha Padma Kasaya Swaha Narakindi Vagalaya Swaha Mavari Sankaraya Swaha Namo Ratna Trayaya Namo Harya Valokite Shvaraya Swaha Om Siryanto Daya Swaha.
The Dhammapada
Body is bringing morning light in concentration. My heart is at peace. A half smile is born on my lips. This is a new day, and I vow to go through it in mindfulness. The sun of wisdom has risen, shining in every noble Sangha. Diligently bring your mind into meditation. Namo Shakyamuni Namo Shakyamunaye Buddhaya Namo Shakyamunaye Buddhaya.
verse opening a sutra. The unsurpassed,
profound and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in hundreds of millions of eons. I now see and hear it, receive and uphold, and I vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning. Namo Shakyamuni
touching the earth, the
one who bows and the one who is bowed to are both by nature empty. Therefore the communication between them is inexpressibly perfect. Our practice and is the net of reflecting all Buddhas everywhere, as my own person reflects in all Buddhas, to whom with my whole life go for refuge.
offering
Light in the 10 directions, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, to whom we bow in gratitude.
teaching
And living the way of awareness in the very midst of suffering and confusion, Shakyamuni Buddha, the awakened one, to whom we in gratitude.
cutting
Through ignorance, awakening our hearts and our minds, Manjushri, the Bodhisattva of great understanding, to whom we bow in gratitude.
working
Mindfully working joyfully for the sake of all beings, Samantabhadra, the Bodhisattva of great action, to whom we bow in gratitude.
responding
To suffering, serving beings in countless ways, Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of great compassion, to whom we bow in gratitude.
seed of
Awakening and loving kindness in children, sprouts in all beings, Maitreya, the Buddha to be born, to whom we bow in gratitude.
showing
The way fearlessly and compassionately, the stream of all our ancestral teachers, to whom we bow in gratitude.
the Dhamma
Is deep and lovely, we now have a chance to see it and practice it.
of the Pranaparamita, the
Bodhisattva
Bodhisattva
Avalokita, while moving in the discourse of Vajnaparamita, shed light on the 5 skandhas and found them equally empty. This penetration he overcame ill-being. Listen, Shariputra, form is emptiness, emptiness is form, form is not other than empty, is not other than form. The same is true with feelings, perception, mental formations, and Shariputra, all dharmas are marked with emptiness. They are neither produce nor increasing nor decreasing. Therefore in emptiness there is neither form nor feelings, no perception nor mental formation nor conscious, no eye or ear or nose or tongue or or mind, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object of mind, no realms of elements, no interdependent origin, no extinction of them, no ill-being, no cause of ill-being, no end of ill-being, and no path, no understanding, no attainment, because there is no attainment. The Bodhisattva Prajnaparamita find no obstacles for their minds, having no obstacles they overcome fear, liberating themselves forever from illusion and realizing perfect nirvana. All Buddhas in the past, present, and future arrive at Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Therefore one should know that perfect understanding is the highest mantra, the unequaled mantra, the destroyer, the incorruptible truth. The mantra of Prajnaparamita should therefore be proclaimed. Gate, gate, para, gate, para, samgate, bodhi, swaha, gate, gate, para, gate, para, samgate, bodhi, swaha, gate, gate, para, gate, para, samgate, bodhi, swaha.
Invoking the Bodhisattva's name, we invoke
your name, Avalokiteshvara. We aspire to learn your way of listening in order to help relieve the suffering in the world. You know how to listen in order to understand. We invoke your name in order to practice listening with all our attention and open-heartedness. We will sit and listen without any prejudice. We will sit and listen without judging or reacting. We will sit and listen in order to understand. We will sit and listen so attentively that we will be able to hear what the other person is saying, and also what is being left unsaid. We know listening deeply, we already alleviate a great deal of pain and suffering in the other person.
We invoke
your name, Anjushri. We aspire to learn your way, which is to be still and to look deeply into the hearts of people. Into the hearts of people, we will look with all our attention and open-heartedness. We will sit. Or reacting, we will look deeply so that we will be able to see and understand the roots of suffering through the impermanent and selfless nature of all that. We will practice your way of using the sword of understanding to cut through the bonds of suffering, thus freeing ourselves and other species.
We invoke
your name, Samantabhadra. We aspire to practice your vow to act with the eyes and heart compassion to bring joy to one person in the morning, and to ease the pain of one person in the afternoon. We know that the happiness of others is our own happiness, and we aspire to practice joy on the path of service. We know that every word, every look, every act, and every smile can bring happiness to others. We know that if we practice wholeheartedly, we ourselves may become an inexhaustible source of peace and joy for our loved ones and for all species.
We invoke
your name, Chitti-Garwa. We aspire to learn your way of being present where there is darkness, suffering, oppression, and despair, so we can bring light, hope, relief, and liberation to those places. We are determined not to forget about or abandon those in desperate situations. We will do our best to establish contact with those who cannot find a way out of their suffering, those whose cries for help, justice, equality, and human rights heard. We know that hell can be found in many places on earth. We will do our best not to contribute to creating more hells on earth and to help transform the hells that already exist. We will practice in order to realize the qualities of perseverance and stability, so that like the earth we can always be supportive and faithful to those in need.
the three refuges. We bow together. I
take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and of love. I take refuge in the community that lives in harmony and awareness. In the refuge of Buddha, I clearly see the path of light and beauty. In the world dwelling in the refuge of Dharma, I learn to open many doors on the path of transformation. Dwelling in the refuge of Sangha, shining light that supports me, keeping my practice free of obstruction.
Take taking
refuge in the Buddha. In myself I aspire to help all people recognize their own awakened nature, realizing the mind of love, taking refuge in the Dharma. In myself I aspire to help all people fully master the ways of practice and walk together on the path of liberation, taking refuge in the Sangha. In myself I aspire to help all people build fourfold communities to embrace all beings and support their transformation.
Sharing the merit,
reciting the sutras, practicing the way of awareness, and this without limits. We vow to share the fruits with all beings. We vow offer tribute to parents, teachers, friends, and numerous beings who give guidance and support